Muhammad Ali wasn't just one of the greatest athletes of all time. He became a symbol recognized across the entire world. Loud, charismatic, unforgettable. A man so charismatic that even people who never watched boxing knew his name. But behind the cameras and the fame was a much more complicated family story. Because while the world celebrated Muhammad Ali, the icon, his children were growing up inside a life few people truly understood. 9 children, and a name that opened doors for them, while quietly closing others. Some of them found their way forward. Some carried the weight quietly. And one of them stepped into the ring herself and earned the right to be called a champion in her own name. But the reality of Muhammad Ali's family was far more complicated than most people ever saw. Because growing up as Muhammad Ali's child was nothing like the world imagined. What it meant to grow up beside the most recognizable man on earth. By the time his children were old enough to understand who their father was, Muhammad Ali had already become one of the most recognizable people on earth. An Olympic gold medalist, a 3-time heavyweight champion, the man who refused to go to Vietnam and paid for it with 3 years of his career. His face appeared on postage stamps. Heads of state requested audiences. When he walked into a room, the room changed. For his 9 children, growing up beside that level of fame was both extraordinary and deeply complicated. His daughter Mia described how her father made each child feel individually seen. That despite the size of the family, he worked to make sure none of them felt invisible. His second wife, Khalilah, said of her years with him, "He was not only the best part of my life, but we stood for beauty. We stood for family." But being Muhammad Ali's child meant that the man you knew at breakfast, the one who made jokes, who played with you, who sat beside you at the dinner table, was simultaneously a symbol that belonged to the entire world. Fame inside the home looked very different from fame on television. And the gap between those 2 versions of Muhammad Ali is where his children's stories actually live. The weight of a name the world already believed it understood. Carrying the Ali name came with a pressure few people could understand. Muhammad Ali wasn't just famous. He was a symbol of greatness, resistance, confidence, and conviction. His children inherited that name before they were old enough to understand what it truly meant. And nowhere was that more visible than in the lives of 3 of his children in particular. Khaliah Ali was born outside of her father's marriage, the daughter of a relationship that complicated an already complex family structure. She grew up navigating not just the weight of the Ali name, but the particular loneliness of a child who carries a famous father's face without always having carried his daily presence. She became a fashion designer and activist, and she has spoken honestly about what it meant to find her place inside a family the whole world already had strong opinions about. Her story shows the difference between inheriting a name and being welcomed into it. But the pressure of the Ali name would become even more visible through one child in particular. Muhammad Ali Jr. was the only son, the one who carried the name most directly and most literally. In February 2017, he was returning from Jamaica with his mother when immigration officers at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport pulled him aside. They asked him his name. They asked him where he got it from. Then they asked him his religion. He said he was Muslim. He was taken to a separate room, held there for nearly 2 hours, despite carrying a U.S. passport, despite having no criminal record, despite being Muhammad Ali's son. His mother was released after she showed officers a photograph of herself with her ex-husband. Ali Jr. had no such photograph. He had not thought he would need one. The son of the man who had sacrificed his heavyweight title rather than compromise his Muslim faith was being detained at an American airport and questioned about that same faith. In a country his father had once stood before and refused to go to war for. Sometimes the Ali name opened doors, and sometimes It painted a target on your back. While Muhammad Ali Jr. carried the burden of that name in one way, Laila Ali carried it in another. But the Ali name didn't just create pressure. In one case, it created a fight nobody expected. Laila Ali and the fight nobody expected her to win. No child carried that burden more publicly than Laila Ali. Laila was born December 30th, 1977, in Miami Beach. She grew up watching her father's Parkinson's disease progress, watching the man who had once moved around a ring with impossible speed and grace become slower, quieter, more still. When she was 18, she watched a Christy Martin fight on television and felt something shift inside her. She started training. And then, at 21, she told her father she was going to become a professional boxer. Muhammad Ali was unhappy. He knew from the inside what boxing did to a body, what it cost across a career, what it left behind. He said, "What's going to happen if you get knocked down?" Laila recalled. She looked at him and said, "Well, if I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up. Just like you did." He could not argue with that. He had spent his entire life making exactly that argument. On October 8, 1999, Laila Ali made her professional debut in upstate New York. Her father was in the crowd. She knocked out her opponent in 31 seconds. And when it was over, she looked across the ring and found her father's eyes. "My father doesn't have to say much," she said. "It's just a look that he gives you. And I saw happiness in him. The critics said she was just Muhammad Ali's daughter, that she was pretty, that she was there for publicity. When I started fighting, everyone was like, 'Oh, she's a pretty girl. Oh, she's Muhammad Ali's daughter. Oh, she can't fight,'" she said. And slowly, the critics stopped laughing. She retired in 2007, undefeated, 24 wins, 21 knockouts, 4 world titles. After her final fight, her mother told her something that stopped her cold. She said, "Your dad really was proud of you. You changed his mind about boxing and women in sports." And then, "You know your father, he's very hard-headed." And Laila said, "You're right, I did. I won that battle against Muhammad Ali." She did not win it by becoming him. She won it by being herself. What the family never showed the world. Behind the public image of greatness was a family still trying to navigate normal life. 9 children across 4 marriages and 2 additional relationships. Half-siblings who grew up in different households. Children who knew their father through visits rather than daily presence. A family structure shaped by the specific complexity of a man whose life rarely slowed down enough for ordinary domesticity. His second wife, Khalilah, chose to remember the best of him. "It was easy to forgive him," she said, "because he was the best part of my life." But not every relationship in the family carried the same ease. Some of the children grew up closer to him than others. Some found the distance difficult to articulate and harder to close. Some grew up knowing him as a constant presence. Others knew him mostly through photographs, through stories told by relatives, through the specific loneliness of a child who shares a famous father's name without always having shared his time. There were children who learned about his legacy from the outside, from television, from schoolmates, from strangers who recognized the surname before they recognized the person. And there were children who had to figure out, quietly and without much guidance, what it meant to be his without always having been seen by him. None of that was ever discussed in press conferences. None of it made the highlight reels. And as the years passed, the family faced something even harder than fame. And then there was the Parkinson's disease, diagnosed in 1984, 3 years after he retired from boxing, progressing slowly and then more quickly through the final decades of his life. The man who had once commanded every room he entered became quieter, smaller, more dependent. His children watched the transformation in different ways and from different distances. Some were beside him constantly. Others watched from further away, carrying their own private grief about a father who was still alive, but increasingly unreachable. When he passed on June 3, 2016, Laila said she had been sad for a long time, because her father had been struggling for a long time. "I'm happy knowing he's no longer struggling," she said, "and that's what gives me comfort." All 9 of his children were at his side when he died. Whatever the complexities across the years, whatever the distance, the silence, the unanswered questions, that image is the most human one available. 9 people gathered around the man who had given them the most recognizable name any of them would ever carry. Saying goodbye. What Muhammad Ali left behind. Muhammad Ali changed sports forever. He changed the way an athlete could speak, resist, and exist in public life. He showed a generation that conviction was not a weakness, that standing for something, even when it cost you everything, was the truest form of strength. Decades after his death, his name still means something specific and enormous, not just in boxing, in the language of courage itself. But for his 9 children, that legacy became something much more personal than a monument. Some of Ali's children embraced the spotlight. Others spent years trying to escape it. Maryam became an advocate, channeling her father's fighting spirit into social work and Parkinson's awareness, spending 15 years in juvenile delinquency prevention and youth development. Rashida became a writer and public speaker, carrying his story forward in her own voice. Jamila pursued philanthropy. Hana built a creative life quietly away from public attention. Mia has spoken about carrying her father's warmth forward, about making others feel seen the way he always made her feel seen. Assad built a private life, largely unknown, exactly as he chose. Khaliah built her own identity through fashion and activism, finding her place in a family the world already had strong opinions about. Muhammad Ali Jr. carried the family name into public battles over religious profiling, walking into a congressional hearing room and making his father's name mean something again, in a way Muhammad Ali himself would have recognized immediately. And Laila stepped into the ring, absorbed the full weight of every comparison, and retired undefeated. Each of them carried the Ali name differently. Each of them paid a different price for it, but none of them escaped it completely. The world remembers Muhammad Ali as a legend, but for his children, he became the name they spent a lifetime trying to live beneath. We want to hear from you. Which of Muhammad Ali's children do you think carried the heaviest burden of the Ali name? Drop your answer in the comments. We read every single one. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe so you never miss being knocked to our site.